if you want it bad enough, you're just going to get it done. And, despite whatever, hops up in your way. And I think that was really the greatest thing I've learned from people. And, just seeing so many people that did it and just felt accomplished, just like kept me going and it's still keeping me going. It really just comes down to it. I think that's been the theme of my podcast. And it's just cool to see so many people that have done it because you're like, oh, I can do that.
Do you love science fiction and fantasy books? You've found yourself in the right dimension. Welcome to the greatest podcast in the multiverse, where each week I talk to science fiction and fantasy authors about myth, magic, and the infinite possibilities of storytelling. I'm your host, Herman Stuernagel, and I will be taking you on a journey with some of your favorite authors, helping you to get to know them and possibly uncover some new literary gems along the way. Ready to explore? Because on this show, every conversation is a doorway into a different world. Welcome to the first ever crossover episode between the greatest podcast in the multiverse and the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I've got Daniel Coolbaugh here. Welcome so much, Daniel. We are sharing the limelight today. It's going great, man. How are you doing?
Oh, I feel great. I was glad that we talked the one day. I was like so jazzed that I had gotten off with like Adrian and and MJ, talking to them for SFF Addicts, and then I was like, I want to do one with Herman too. So
That's awesome.
You lined up quick, which was nice. Yeah, and I had a couple other people. I was like, oh, it's really cool. So I'm like addicted to your podcast. So I have like 4 left actually. I just got swamped at work. And people keep coming to my office. So yeah, like leave me alone.
I've got quite a backlog of yours as well. But I chatted with Adrian too a couple of weeks ago, and his episode will have been up a month already now. But it's so great that we're able to chat amongst each other in the podcast, sci-fi fantasy podcast space, and I love that we all get along and are able to have a good time together.
Yeah, we were actually talking because we when we got done, him and I. With our private one, he was like, we were talking about, we got to get Herman on too. And then we were talking about a couple other people. So now we're just like, it's just going to grow. I think it'd be like really
fun. For it.
We were talking, we're like, it's just different when you just talk to just authors or just podcasters. And we were talking about, you were like, it's just different, when you have somebody that does both. I feel like it's just different. So yeah, anybody out there that does the same thing, you know what we mean. So yeah, it's just fun because, you get a different perspective than a lot of people. So yeah, I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, my chat with Adrian was a lot the same way. We talked a bit about. I mean, his podcast is a little bit different from ours, and that I mean, he gets a lot of the big trad pub guys on, and I don't know if I've had 1 or 2 so far. I mean, I'm still pretty early in this game compared to the two of you, but yeah, we had a good chat about podcasting too. So we will, I'm sure, as well today.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I know we said we are going to start off chatting about our podcast. So do you want to kick us off and just tell us a little bit about your podcast and what made you start podcasting?
Yeah, it was like 2.5 years ago almost. So this August will be my 3rd year like doing it. So right now I just today released Shamey Stowballs. It's like season 3, episode 26. So I think I have like another 10 like ready to go. I have quite a few left. I try to get 1 per week for the year, that kind of thing. I've booked out for like 2 years now.
That's crazy.
It's
That's
pretty
great,
nice. It's just like happened all of a sudden. I've been keep trying to send people your way, Adrian's way, like in the podcast group. I'm like, I wish like we talked before we got recording. I just it was like one of those things where like like with traditional publishing, like I've had a few people on like Sean and McGuire, things like that, but I've just had a lot of people who are just starting out, and I really liked the journeyman's aspect, I guess, trying to help people out, like me sort of thing, who are just writing or publishing or editing or something like that. So for me, like 2.5 years ago, everybody was just like asking for everything, it seems like, in the community, and it just seems like not a lot of people were providing things, and it was just like a kind of like a me sort of situation before, like right around the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and then I feel like I was thinking about it for a while, and then I was just listening to a couple podcasts that I really liked, and I was like, oh, they're doing a great job, but then then there's nothing wrong with it, but they were really after the big traditional published authors or people that had been in it for a long time, which I get, but But then I saw those people around the same podcast over and over again, and I'm like, well, what about Joe Schmo? So, so I've like kind of centered more towards, people always ask me about views and this and that. I'm not really worried about it. Just trying to get people, to the limelight. One of my friends is teasing recently. He's like, I like these interviews you did. He goes, but all these books are just about to come out. And he's like, you're interviewing all these new authors. I'm like, yeah, well, they asked and, trying to, just to get their stuff out there. Particularly because, now we have a viewership and stuff like that. So it's kind of nice, to help people out.
Right.
So, yeah, it's been nice, especially with the podcast group. We're at like 1,100 people now. And I feel like so many people are just sharing things back and forth. We got a lot more podcasts, YouTubers, booktubers, book reviewers, stuff like that. So I had a lot of people I was like, if I can't get to you, I told them, I was like, Herman's in there. I was like, there's all these other, people. So I was like, just, put something in there, ask them. I was like, I can help you, but I just think it's cool to, have a community now, which has been really fun. So,
right. Yeah. And the Facebook group, kudos to you for, it is quite an active group, and it's impressive that you've got that happening there. I think it's a good space. People seem willing to help each other out and share each other's work, which is nice, right?
Yep. Yeah, they've done a really good job. Yeah. We've had people that have actually like gotten audio narrators together. People,
cool.
Just had some different people like that actually got together and did their own podcasts or specials or stuff on YouTube channels. Just like just cool stuff. We have a lot of authors that they're just like workhorses. I call them. They'll continuously share anything that's like in the group, which has just been really cool. So I feel like you always need those people. So it's been nice. I think we had like 350 posts within the last month, which I don't think was a short month, but like compared to before where it was, the numbers have just like skyrocketed. We had almost like 750 new members in the last like year. So that's been really nice.
Wow. And you're the only admin, right? Like, do you find, do you
have
a hard time managing?
I'd like to be the only admin. I have a couple people that are like, hey, did you see this? Okay. The AI tool has been helpful, like especially, and Facebook's done a much better job of like flagging stuff. Pretty much like anybody that like, there's a couple of people where I'm like, if I've had to give them a warning or something, but I'll flag them and I'll have to okay their stuff every time. But a lot of people have been trying to spam like the book promoters, but they're not real book promoters.
Yeah, they've been bad lately.
Yeah, I just been keeping it locked down. So no offense to anybody if you are like, or if you know somebody like one of mine, like Michael Evan, like I know him, so like he's fine. But like there's a couple others, but if it's very clearly spam, I'll keep it out. I feel like that's kind of, and then like there were a couple people that tried to put in some different things that just weren't related to the group or the podcast. I'm like, I don't care what podcast you share as long as it's like fantasy, sci-fi, horror, book related, movie game, something like that. On topic. Right. We had a couple history ones where I was like, those are kind of borderline. So I talked to those people, but people have been a lot better about it over the last like 6 months. So trying to keep it going.
Yeah. I've noticed in all groups, I've noticed this uptick in, I don't know if it's a new way of scamming people, but it's like post your book title for promotion or something like that. And and everyone they're like, yeah, my book. People don't know, right? And they just want a chance to share their work, which is great. But I don't know what the follow up to that question is, but it usually gets taken down pretty quick in most groups. Yeah. Cool. So are we going back and forth with the questions? You want me to answer that same one? Is that how we're doing this?
Yeah. That'd be great. Yeah, I'm actually really curious because I actually don't know. I've heard you talk a little bit on your podcast, but I don't know if we've actually gotten your origin story yet, which is kind of interesting.
I talked a little bit about it with Laura Juntonen when I interviewed her last season. She was running the Read It with Whiskey podcast, and so it was last summer or last spring where she decided she wasn't doing it anymore. And at the time, I listened to her show and I listened to your show, and when she announced that she was stopping, I was like, that's really too bad because there aren't a lot of spaces for, like you were saying, indie authors to come and promote their stuff if they're not well known. And I was like, I've thought about doing a podcast before, just off and on, and I thought, maybe it's something I could do. And I talked to my wife, and I was like, would I be crazy for adding something else to my plate? Because I've got so much on the go already. And she's like, no, I think that would be great. And she's like, you can call it the greatest podcast in the multiverse. I'm like, well, now I have to do it.
And then, it's such a great name.
It is. Well, and the reason why she said it is because, so I've been working, we'll talk a little bit about the books I'm working on later, but at that time, even I had started these cozy fantasy books that I'm working on. And the one I was working on at the time is called The Greatest Pub in the Multiverse. That's the title
awesome.
of the book. So it's so much fun. And I'm working on, it's about half done now. It'll be coming out later this year. But I'm like, it just ties in so well to that title. I'm like, I've got to run the podcast now. So yeah, and then so from there, it just kind of everything just kind of fell in place really from there, and it just seemed meant to be. So it kind of happened. It's one of those things I either plan for a really long time and stuff eventually happens, or it just happens all at once. And this was really one of those things where it just happened all at once. And suddenly I had a podcast all of a sudden. I had guests lined up for 20 episodes right off the bat. And it was just wild. And it's kind of snowballed in the last year since then. So I started, my first episode was I started recording in July and August of 2023. And June and July and then I think my first episode released in August. So it was it happened so fast.
So, it was awesome because I had like two people where you're saying like she, hers was done. I was like, dang it. And then like right before, I think it was like maybe probably several months before that, like Fletcher and like Hearn and Hayes and Ashton, like theirs was done with Wizards, Words, and Words, which I would recommend anybody go back and listen. I hope they start again. But like they just seemed like it was 3 or 4 I listened to right off the bat were just done. Yeah. And then when I saw you were coming out, I was like, yes. I was like, now I got something else to listen to, because a couple of my other ones were kind of lulled, and they kind of took a break too. I think I had 5 actually. 5 of my favorites were like done. Yeah, it was a big chunk, and I had a different drive, so like yours worked out perfectly right at that time, because I was going to my new job and I could do half on the way there and half on the way back, pick up my kid, and be good to go. So now I'm a little behind. I think I'm 4 or 5 behind, but you've had some great guests though. I got to say, like, it's been really nice to to see that.
Yeah, I mean, you've had some great guests too, but I've been blown away by some of the people that have agreed to come on. I get a lot of people reaching out to me, but I like to poke at some people that I actually want to chat with. I had Christopher Rocchio on recently.
That was a great episode.
He's such an we could have talked for 3 hours, I'm sure. But he's such an interesting guy, and his books are incredible. Have you read Empire of Silence?
Actually, he said something the other day about the paperbacks, and I was like, I was so bummed, because my buddy, I actually waited for him for book club, and we were in and out on deciding whether or not Way of Kings after Malazan was going to be our next one. So we did that one, and then we actually already have like Liza Luckmora after that, and then I think we're going to do Empire of Silence, and then we're going to try to. There's another one too, I forget, but we're going to try and go through like books 1s and then the 2s and then the 3s. That way we're not as burnt out, because Malazan at the end was like, I was struggling, man. Between that and as much writing. I did a lot of writing despite having my son this year compared to the last couple of years, because that's all I could do on my phone, in between sleeping, and Malazan just took it out of me. And it was great, but it was just,
I have a hard time. So. Yeah, I have a hard time reading. I'm impressed that you're able to keep up with your reading with writing and podcasting and teaching and everything you do, man. I'm so impressed.
Now it's just like my kids ask me, they're like, oh, have you played this game? Like, I want to play Helldivers 1 and 2, don't get me wrong. But like when it comes to the end of the day, it's like my son falls asleep. Like, first of all, I'm not just one of those people that can just, like, if I'm going to do something and my son's awake, like, I'm going to spend time with them. So that's people ask me, like, when do you get stuff done? I'm like, when he goes to sleep. So that's like, I've been kind of more of a night owl than the year before, just trying to get stuff done. And then, but like, I just won't play a video game. I'll be like, I almost like get guilty. I'm like, I could finish a book and do a review, or read or write, I don't know. It's almost like I feel guilty. Like, video games not really helping me at this point, if that makes sense.
It does. I totally feel you there. I really do. But not that they're not great, at the same time, I know. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel that I can't, like, my brain can only do so much. It needs a break.
True that. Yep.
And, so sometimes I'm like, I could read, but my brain is just done. So like, I'll I'll pop on Zelda or something, and
a classic game like that, right? Though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's a lot different. The kids ask me, I'm like, I'll play, because that's what I used to do before my son was born. I would just play Skyrim for a reading break. You know, I'd go get in trouble on there, and I feel like that. Yeah, that's like a TV show, right? Where like I grade, and I'll have like something that like How I Met Your Mother on. You know, where it's almost like I can almost write to it, you know, and be totally fine. But yeah, I think there's certain games like that where it's just like it's like your cozy place, you know, where you can just relax. And I feel like that's a lot different. They're asking about all these new games. I'm like, no, I was like, if I'm going to play something, I'm going to play, you know, something that, you know, just kind of envelops me like a emotional blanket, if that makes sense, and just kind of let my brain go. Because I don't even have to think about the controls for Skyrim. You know, I played it for so long, or maybe like Diablo 2 for the computer or something, you know, something like that. But something new, I just think it just takes me time to learn it. And then I'm like wondering about the world building and stuff. And I find that it tends to actually hinder me. Pathfinder, whatever that one was for like PlayStation 4 and the Xbox, not Kingmaker, the one before that. Oh my gosh. Like I got nothing done. I got no writing done. That was right before my son was born. And I got no reading done. It just took over my whole life because it was such a good game. And like the world building was amazing. So I tend to get like really, I'm a binger. So whether or not it's TV or whatever, or a game or books. So I tend to get lost in it. So trying to be more responsible now, I guess. But
my brain won't let me binge. I can't do it. Like we watch about half an hour to an hour of TV a night while we're eating. And that's about it. If I get any longer than that, my brain's like, no, you should be doing something productive. You have stuff to do. I have a hard time switching that off.
My son has made it a lot easier because usually it's only like 30 minutes to 45. Like Reacher was nice. I would just do it on Friday nights when he went to sleep, and then I got like an hour and a half of writing done. But yeah, now my wife's like, oh, do you want to watch this? I'm like, not really. Like I've tried getting into the Last Airbender, which I liked episode 1, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like I want to binge it, but I'm like so close to getting all these projects done. I can't. Yeah, right. So I'll probably end up waiting, you know, till the summertime or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I hear you. There's so much out there I wanna watch too. We finally finished the last season here of Strange New Worlds.
It's fair.
Yeah, it was so good, so good. Yeah. So the next question here, I guess, is what have been the greatest lessons that you've learned from your guests?
Oh man, I was thinking about this actually earlier. I guess the greatest one I learned was like, you can definitely do it. For me, like the last 2.5 years, like have just been nuts. Like within the last 6 years, I've had 4 jobs, at different schools just because of how the state did stuff and then COVID. And last 5 years, I've gotten 2 master's degrees. Just like it wasn't exactly planned, but with how the certification and stuff went for the state. So I just feel like I got really deterred for a while. Like I've had a lot of books that are half done or 3/4 done. I just have to finish and then, send it to the editor. So I just felt like I had a lot of stuff and I just needed to be completed with a project. And the more I talked to people, I just felt like everybody's been in that same boat. But just to get to each person and kind of almost like siphon off their energy, like I'd get really frustrated with something, and be like, well, so-and-so finished this or fixed this problem or whatever, and that the last like 6 months have not been great. I've had like an infected root canal, so it's taken them forever to figure out what it was. So I'm still waiting actually. By the time this is a release, I'm hoping I just got it done. It was just like kind of rough, and like the fact that I'm about to be done with this novella, and I just kept going, I just kept plowing forward, but that really was just like what people were telling me, like if you want it bad enough, you're just going to get it done, and despite whatever hops up in your way. And I think that was really the greatest thing I've learned from people, and just seeing so many people that did it and just felt accomplished, just like kept me going and it's still keeping me going because I still have like 10% left to edit tonight. So yeah, just getting done and just trying to get better, I think. And that doesn't matter who I talk to, whether it was, Sean and McGuire or, somebody like Book One. I mean, trying to get Shannon's like books on a TikTok, a couple pictures or an Instagram, like to get them all, you'd have to do like 10 posts on Instagram.
Yeah. Right.
So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And like that has been the same message the whole time, that people were basically like, if you want it bad enough, you're going to write this story and get this book out there and find the readership. And I think that is just like it really just comes down to it. You know, I think that's been the theme of my podcast, and it's just cool to see so many people that have done it, because you're like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just that motivational piece I think was great. So
definitely. Yeah, cool.
How about you?
For me, I would say I think the greatest lesson that I've learned doing the podcast is how open and willing authors are to talk and help each other. Good one. You know, when I started this, I didn't know that. I was like, well, are authors going to want to talk to me, or is anybody going to listen? But, you know, even to have people like Adrian Gibson, who runs SF Fanatics, you reach out to me and, you know, want to come on the show. We've gotten to chat, and, you know, just being people willing to share my posts, share the podcast, to chat with me about the show. And not me in particular, just realizing how connected everyone is and willing to help each other has been so cool to see. And it's a space that, you know, for me, this is technically will be my fourth year of publishing. Third really, because I published December 2020. I wish I had found the space earlier. I wish I had found, put myself out there a little bit more earlier. Because, you know, I always thought, you know, authors are over there, they're doing their thing, they don't want to talk to me, right? But everyone's, been so cool and so easy to chat with, and it's been great. And that's definitely something that starting this podcast has definitely opened my eyes up to a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, I always tell the story when people ask me about it. When I was about to move here, and I was in Arizona, I was in Phoenix, and my now wife, she's like, hey, there's a poster downtown Scottsdale that says your favorite author Kevin Hearn's going to be there. And at the time I was reading the Iron Druid Chronicle books, which were like the main character was stationed at places where we were going. Like Rula Bula was his favorite restaurant. That was my favorite restaurant down there. And Kevin Hearn used to live down there. So he still would go to the Poison Pen. So he brought Brandon Sanderson, Patrick Rutherford right before they blew up. Brian McKellen was there. Michael J. Sullivan. Pierce Brown was there. Like I always forget I met Pierce Brown. He was so cool. But there was just so many people there, but like they were traditional, but they were indie too. And that was pretty much the day where I was like, I think I'm going to do hybrid. And that was like 9 years ago almost. And, but like, just to see the indie community and like Michael and some of these other people and how they talked about each other's work. And they're like, we just came here to have a good time. You know, like if we sell books, whoop-de-doo, you know, but they just like want to hang out with each other. And I just thought like that is really telling, you know, that this community sticks together like that, and they'll just go to a Comic-Con together and they'll go to a signing together. And, you know, then all weekend, like they were hanging out together. You know, I saw them a couple places that weekend before I left. And it was just so I spent like all day there. Like it was like 8 in the morning till like almost like 9 p.m. And I was literally there like all day. It took me a while to get in. I went in 3 times. And at the end, I was just going in, I had signed everything, bought everything. I was just going to talk about, you know, just the indie community, because I had never heard of it, you know. And ever since then, it's just so cool to see that, you know, everything they said, it's just become so much more, you know. And like you were saying, like, you know, people just help each other out so much more. And I mean, it's just really cool. Like, and I think I can't remember if I was listening to you and Christopher, I think it was your guys's, but you guys had, I think he mentioned, you know, like people are just really cool, you know, and you could just go ask so-and-so, you know, and like Anthony Ryan's talked to me a couple times. I'm like, is this for real? You know, when Andy Peliquin messaged me on Instagram, I was like, asked me about a book. I was like, oh no, it was really good. And, you know, I just was kind of shocked, you know, I was like, who am I, you know? So it's just, but it doesn't matter. Right. Cause they're just really cool and represent the community well. So it's cool.
Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, and some of those guys that are really, and some of the, like someone like Andy who, you know, has, what does he have, like 30 books out or something like that?
Something like that. Maybe 38 right now. I don't even know. He's got more out while we're talking.
Probably, right? Yeah. I mean, he's got his Kickstarter going right now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Like he actually lives fairly close to me. So
that's right.
Yeah, so I've been chatting with him a little bit. I'm gonna try to get him. Maybe I shouldn't say this maybe I'll edit this out just in case it doesn't happen. But I want to do a live interview with him.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Because I don't know how the logistics of that are going to work,
Yeah.
but he's probably the one author I would be able to do that too, because it's like 2 hours away from me. So we'll figure
Oh
something
yeah.
out.
See, that's
Yeah.
like Michael R. Fletcher, him and I had talked with Dirk before, because Dirk's in Ohio, and we had talked about doing the Toronto Comic Con
Oh
like a
yeah.
while back. So at some point I was
Mhm.
like, oh, that'd be really cool to do. And I've never been to Toronto, so he's like, yeah, anytime you're near here or whatever. I think it's like an hour from him or something. He's like, yeah, I'll meet you, do whatever. So I totally get it. It's
Yeah.
I feel like it's totally different doing stuff that's like this is cool, but like getting to actually meet people and do stuff is just so much different. So that's like what I'm
Mhm.
looking forward to next year, is like going to Indianapolis, and do, I forget if it wasn't Gen Con, it was the other one. And then I would love to do
Yeah.
Gen Con at some point too in Atlanta. But yeah, just to go and
Yeah.
just meet people in person, I think could just be so much better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would like to do that too. Next year's Worldcon is in Seattle, so I've been thinking
that's
about
what his
doing that, because
Worldcon is.
that's yeah,
Yeah,
because that's about a 5 hour drive for me. So
that's
I
like
can
Sean
probably get
Crow's
there.
over there. Yeah, like I told my wife, I said at some
Yeah,
point I'd love to do that, because like a lot of you guys are like that way. And I was like, half
yeah.
my friends are on this side. I was like, half are on the other side. I was like, at some point I'd love to do something on that side of the country. So yeah, I definitely
Mhm.
understand
Yeah,
that.
like Martha Wells is supposed to be the guest of honor there this
Yeah.
year. So
Yep.
yeah, that I think it's an opportunity that I don't think I'll have to get to Worldcon that close ever again.
I
That's
agree.
it's so
Yeah.
close to me. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna try to swing that. We'll kind of see though what the year brings.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome.
Yeah. So, Daniel, what's your biggest goal with your podcast? I know we've probably talked around it quite a bit here, but
You know what? Yeah, honestly, I'm still waiting for that one day. Like, and it's hard now with all the algorithm shifts on TikTok, X, Twitter, whatever,
Mhm.
even Facebook, Instagram. I'm still looking for that one day where I can help somebody blow up.
Mhm.
Like I just want
Yeah,
one day to be like 1,000, not even for myself, like just like
yeah,
1,000 views, and then people just keep sharing. Oh, I didn't know this author was here or whatever. That's what
Mhm.
keeps me going. Like other than just like the fact that
Yeah,
like I enjoy it and I like helping people out, and I always learn something. But like I really just want one time, somebody to blow up, and it's so cool because like I've had people where like Tatiana Obey, right? She talked about Sister
Mhm.
Samurai on my
Yeah.
podcast, that she was thinking about doing it, and then for that to like become a thing, and then
Oh,
get to read it and love it, like that was so cool.
yeah,
It might be the teacher in me, but I don't know, that was just really cool. I love seeing people succeed, and
yeah.
like seeing like Zach and everything, like do so well with Stone and Sky, getting
Mhm.
multiple awards, things like that.
Yeah.
Just like cool things, like I had I'm gonna totally blank on. John Palladino, right? Like he was on my podcast, and then he had a bunch of cool stuff happen. So yeah, just like I just want one time though to be like, yeah, we did it. Like this person blew up because of this interview,
Yeah,
and
right.
just to see their success after, I think would just be really cool. So
That would be cool for sure. Yeah, yeah. What's funny with Tatiana, I had her on as well, but I had her
that was
on.
a
I mean,
great,
after.
great, great interview. Great interview.
Yeah, it was so good. She's so much fun to chat with, and I'm so
Oh, for
happy
sure.
that Sister Samurai has done so well for her. But I saw it's funny. I saw the cover on Twitter. She did a cover reveal, and that blew up. And that was about the same time I think Murphy picked it up as well. And I asked her to come on, and then I realized and I was if I if I'm not able to read a book, or sometimes if I'm not, I go searching for another interview of the author. So I found the interview that you did with her, which was around the same time that you had me on. So it was funny. I was like, how did I
Yes.
not
Yeah.
see this before? Yeah. So sometimes they slip through,
Yep.
but it was so cool to watch her interview with you and then chat with her about the book, because yeah, you were chatting with her about what she was working on, and she was
Yeah.
just like so the energy from her about this book was so incredible. She was so excited about it. It just was, and it was such a good book too. She definitely deserved to
Yeah.
be that excited about. But yeah, it was so much fun being able to chat with her about that, and then seeing the success of that book kind of grow
Yeah.
from that point. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah. It
I
was
agree
super
with you,
cool.
but yeah, I mean, I feel like my goal is probably a bit more selfish than that, though. I've got for me, I'm like, I just want to chat with authors. I want to,
That's
get to know
fair.
other people in the community, right? Like that's kind of been my biggest goal in this. Because yeah, like I mean, this is a fairly new podcast. My views aren't, in the thousands or in the hundreds, even some days or most times. But for me, it's just, getting to chat with other authors, getting to know their processes and getting to know what, works for them, and kind of growing and being able to, hopefully share that, their stuff with the audience as well. I mean, it'd be great, if an episode took off and, caused one of these authors to blow up. That'd be great. But, for me, it's really my goal at this stage, at the early growth stage is, is connecting, is, getting to,
for sure,
expand kind of the author network that I'm in, just to be able to help people out, and and have fun with it. Right. So
well, my wife always laughs at me. I was like, I'm going to work. She's like, you're just going to hang out with your friends. Because like lately, that's like a lot of my author friends I've been interviewing. So it's just like, right. I'm like, it's true.
And that's a lot of what this is, right? It's, my first few interviews, I was pretty, I was super nervous, and now, it's not, I'm not nervous for it anymore, because I'm just like, chatting for a couple hours. That's easy, right? Like it's it's having fun and getting to know people. So I don't have the audience right now to think, okay, well, I'm gonna blow any of these authors up at this point. It'd be great, absolutely, if that happened. So for right now, for me, it's just like connecting with people and connecting others. So
No, I totally agree. It's hard because like I talk to people. I think they think I'm at like 10,000 subscribers or something. I'm like, no, we're at like still trying to get to 500. I'm like, that's like with Facebook. Once we hit 1,000, that was why I pushed for it for so long. I mean, I was like sending individual invites to people. Like that's what I would do. My summer, I would write for like an hour, and then I would just sit on TikTok or Instagram for 30 minutes, and every author that would pop up, I would just send like an interview or a invite to for the podcast group. But like I knew once we hit 1,000, it was like we were going to be in the algorithm different, and I just keep shooting for that for YouTube too, because even if you hit 500, your algorithm hits different. Even if you don't have like the 3,000 watch hours or whatever for the advertisements and stuff. But it just hits different. So I don't know. I told people like I was shooting for like trying to get 3 seasons done in 2 years, so I could just get a lot of episodes out. But most things that I saw said like 3.5 to 4 years is really what it takes for any podcast to be successful. I think a lot of people don't realize that, and they're like get burnt out or whatever, which I totally get. Now this is like my time to chill and be an adult, and not listen to Wiggles or Bluey or something. So it's kind of nice. But it's a lot different, I think, than people think it is. And it really is. It's a grind. And they think just because all these apps and things, it's like actually the algorithm's working against you, unless you're paying, So that's like what Adrian and I were joking about. I was like, we're starting our own cabal, it's like, we'll just have you on and, vice versa, and just keep going from there. And eventually we'll just own the podcast empire and go from there. So,
it's funny, like at first, the first, few episodes, I really, I did worry about views a lot. And then, at some, I was like, no one's watching this. Is this worthwhile with my time? And then I realized, you know what? I'm focusing on the wrong thing. Like it's not, that's not important, especially like you said, like, I was looking up some stuff and it was like, you're looking at 2 to 3 years for sure for a podcast to start finding an audience. And I'm like, okay, well, I can either worry about, views and listens for a few years, or I can, really look at why I'm doing this. And like I said, why I'm doing this is to connect with other authors, learn from them, and, hopefully help them out. But, if I can focus on that rather than views and, subscribes and whatnot until that point, then I'm happy with what I'm doing. So,
the only thing that helps you in the long run is content anyways, like pumping out content, good content. I think of it like a teacher too. Like, I always find that the episodes where I'm having the most fun, that's the one that most people are drawn to, which has been nice, especially this last season. I've just had like a freaking blast talking to people and just
you've had some great guests this season.
It's been really good. Yeah. I'm like really, really ready to get to season 4, though. I think people are going to be like really, really shocked. Like I don't have like, I wasn't going after Brandon or anybody, but like just like cool people, that I found that I thought had really cool personalities. Definitely intermixed a lot of like this year's kind of stunk because, and I've had great like people that have stepped up, but it was like I had a great lineup and then I had stuff and then other people had production issues or family stuff like I did, and it just didn't work out. So a lot of them got bumped to like season 4 and stuff, but I was lucky to, find other people that, like came and filled in, and we just had a good time. So
yeah, totally. Yeah. Like I said earlier, I've been blown away by the people that have both approached me and who I've approached that have said yes to come on the show. Just especially, like I think this episode here will be 25, if my math is right. It might be 26, but I mean, that's a baby podcast, really, right? And so to have people,
I don't know, because most people don't even get 10 off the ground of 20.
I guess so.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a false representation is what I've been trying to tell people, because I think a lot of people don't realize, like, a lot of people, they don't get past 10. Was the average from what I saw. I think it was like 9 actually is what I saw a while back.
I've heard that before too. I feel like people don't realize how much work it actually goes
it
into
really
an
is,
episode, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the hour sitting and chatting with you. It's getting all the behind the scenes stuff takes a lot of time.
The questions, even the emails and stuff back and forth. Like I had 2 years ago, like we were traveling a lot in the summer, and it was like, I mean, it was just horrendous. Like the tech issues I had so many reschedules, reshoots and stuff. I mean, it was just like it felt like work. This year didn't, which has been really nice, knock on wood. But yeah, it was like a lot of work, but I knew if I could get past that season, like cool stuff would start happening this year for, just things in general. And it definitely did. I think those numbers don't lie, but I think a lot of people I don't think realize how much work it actually is, but
like, and I took a step back for, December, January, because I had 2 books.
Yeah, 2 releases. Yeah.
Yep. No, it was just wild. It was,
and they were quick too.
They were quick. So like with those 2, I'd written them both at the same time. And so I'm like, I'll just release them back to back. And oh man, that was a horrible decision, but it is what it is. But yeah, I had to take a step back because I'm like, I just can't do it all. And I was burnt out. Like I was so burnt out come November that I'm like, I had a few episodes recorded. I'm like, I'll put these out, but then I need to breathe. So I took December off, and then January came. Like, oh, I don't have any interviews lined up. So I had to book and record interviews through January. So restarted in February. But yeah, it's a lot of work, and I was thankful that I could take and I'm doing this thing for for fun kind of thing. So I was able to take 2 months off, and and then as soon as I came back, people were ready to go. So it's
I was like trying to get caught up. I had I think I had 7, and then I had gotten mostly caught up. I had 3, and then that's where now I think I'm still like 4 behind. But I was like, he's taking a break. I was like, I can get caught up a little. I just want people to know I can't take a break. I can't take a break, guys. Like I'm like addicted to it now. So you guys just have to figure out more hours to listen in the day or watch.
Yeah, right. I hope I'll manage my schedule a little bit more efficiently this upcoming year, but we'll see how that goes. Sometimes those lessons need to be learned more than once, apparently.
That is fair. I've definitely found that to be true. Well, it's like I was trying to get done by April, and I was like, my wife's like, you're not gonna be done before April. So that's where I shifted stuff for my releases into the summer, because I was like, I have podcasts that I'm about to be on and things like that, just like solo ones or whatever, not for my podcast or crossovers. And I was like, in order to I wanted to do an actual launch for my novella, first one especially, and really get out there and just hang with people, meet some new people. And my wife, she's like, you're just not going to have enough time. So we were supposed to already be filming season 4. And, stuff just happened, life happened, and it just wasn't possible. So now I've really readjusted a lot of things. But yeah, now we're like looking at the calendar. She's like, what can I do? I'm like, I'm trying. I think I have like 18 left after this. Or 17. So trying to definitely get them in before May. That way we can just kind of focus on, book launch and stuff like that.
On the book stuff. Yeah. Pre-recording episodes. Pre-recording episodes makes things so much. I mean,
it really does
so much better. You're not. I hate the feeling of scrambling. Like, who am I having on the show this week?
Yep.
Yeah. I like to have them recorded at least 4 to 6 weeks in advance. At the
for sure.
Minimum. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm 7 weeks ahead right now, and I'm like freaking out. I'm only 7 weeks ahead. So yeah, it's getting kind of crazy, but.
That's funny. Yeah, 6 is a good number for me. I like to have a little bit of flexibility. When I get further out, like I don't know if I'd want to book a full season like you do ahead of time.
That's hard.
Just because. Yeah, like I have definitely enough people interested that have contacted me that I could be recording well into the summer, but there are people I want to talk to, right? So I want to leave a little room for myself to be able to bring people in, right?
Yeah. Well, sorry, that reminds me too, just for anybody that's thinking about podcasting, what I actually did this season, speaking of, that's what I was thinking of, like having learned a lesson multiple times. So the first 2 seasons I did that. I like went really far out and I thought, oh, this is genius. And then the pandemic happened and post-pandemic stuff happened. It was just crazy. People were like, can I move my release and this and that? It was nuts. So now what I do is I actually will only go out to 8 weeks. That way, in case something happens for myself or somebody, I just bump people. And that's where this season I was smarter because I knew it was going to happen. I told people right off the bat, I said, my first 8 were, I said, this is the time. I said, if not, I'm going to have to just bump you back. And I told everybody else, the same thing. And everybody was so cool because I told them ahead of time. I was like, my son was born, we had a lot of struggles, just in general, like right off the bat. My wife wasn't working for an extended time, which she didn't know. Like that wasn't planned, so there was just like stuff that happened. But and I told people, I was like, I'm doing this to help you. So, and I mean, I just kind of threw that out there first thing and people were really cool. But yeah, I only did like 8 weeks out and I just had 8 people and then I would do the next 8. And then however many I missed or whatever, I would just kind of bump. So I would highly recommend that. I think, because what I used to do the first 2 seasons was bump everybody onto a calendar. That's physically impossible. So even now, I think I'm only going to in the summer do like 4 ahead. That way I could slowly kind of go from there. But yeah, just booking out. Yeah. Like, I'm going to book 6 months out in advance. Like, don't do that. Only do this month and the next month. And then after that, have them pre-recorded. So that's one of my things that I've learned is just the hard way. So
right. Yeah, like, when I'm looking ahead at this, like, and I want to have months where I'm doing kind of themes and that sort of thing too. So like, I want to be able to like, have certain people come on. So like, like I said, I think it was like the break-in authors. I don't know. They all came at me at once after I interviewed Zach. So all of a sudden, they're asking me about. I'm like, I can maybe fit you in July, but I've got to work out my schedule too because I've got, people I want to talk to as well. So I am here to help people out too, but I also am here, like I said before, I want to talk to people and learn certain things. So so I want to have that flexibility in the schedule and not book 6 months. 6 months.
Well, I had somebody ask me and I said, well, I always keep 20 episodes for myself. And I've always had somebody last minute who's had something cool come on. Eventually I don't care, I'll just do extra episodes, but for right now I can't. I always just do that. There's only so much time, when you're trying to write too.
And I've thought that too. I'm like, well, I could do more than 1 episode a week. I'm like, well, no, time-wise I can't, right? Like, when you're working full time and trying to write and trying to read and keep up with everything else, right? It's just, there's only so many hours in a week, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, sure.
So, Daniel, what's the coolest thing that's happened on your podcast or because of it?
I still think, like it was just so cool to see both Tatiana Obey and H.M. Long. Like Hannah talked about Dark Waters and doing like a new trilogy during our first interview, like season 1, and then to see that come out then into fruition, and now she's got book 2's coming out, and then book 3 is already done. It's just so cool, right? To just hear people talk about those things and they're just kind of out there, and then to actually see them and then see them do really well, I think was just super cool. So for me, that's just like I keep trying that, and then people were like, oh, I'm not going to do well, like SFFBO or something like that, and then for them to be like finalists or win, and who I had on, I'm just cool stuff, and just talking about just in general, just their books and how they weren't sure, like Michael McCall, like The Price of Power. I mean, I feel like I've seen it everywhere, so I love War Song, so that one's on my list. Price of Power, War Song was terrific novella, but it's just like to just to talk about War Song, and then to see how well that did, I think was just super cool. So just to see people talk about their hopes and dreams, and then afterwards, to get to see those goals met pretty quickly is like just super cool. So I don't know if I could ever beat that. So
I agree. Getting to chat with people, and then seeing that, seeing their work do well, but also getting to, being able to ask them other questions and getting to know them on a different level has been really cool.
That's a good one.
Like my last question is always, what is in another universe, what would a different version of yourself be doing? And to hear some of the the answers from people has been it's just been so interesting to me. When I interviewed Zamil Akhtar, his answer is still my favorite.
Interview.
And it's such a because he's like, yeah, if I didn't go to the coffee shop that day with my friend, I wouldn't have had this idea to write this story. And I'm like, look at how well that book is done, because you decided to go to the coffee shop one day. Like, I'm just like, that is like, it's just wild to me that, those little changes that affected somebody writing a certain book or not, that, that interests me. That's the coolest thing for me. I really enjoy that. Yeah. Yeah. It was a great interview too. He's such a good guy too.
That was one where I always listen to interviews like yours, but then there's some that I'll save where I'm like, there's something that I liked about them. So I'm trying to get better about this. But like, that's one I saved. And I know specifically there were certain things that he was talking about, like in terms of his process, that I really liked. That was a great answer that he gave at the end too. I thought that was really cool. Made me think, but yeah, there was like, that was one interview. There's a couple that you've had where I'm like, oh, that's just like I would say too, like with Star, like that was a great one just in terms of just talking about historical fiction, because I want to write historical fantasy kind of thing, or historical urban fantasy. So that was one I keep going back to, just to hear what she's had to say in terms of her research and stuff. But that was another one where it just like overall just made me think like, okay, what decision could I make today? A positive one that could reflect on me later, so that's a simple decision, right? To go to the coffee shop. So for me, like that was just like super cool. I could see that kind of mirrored in, different things that different people have told me when I've interviewed. So I don't know. I really liked that answer from him. So that was a great interview.
Yeah. Like I said, like how often, I said during that interview, how often do you decide, I'm not going to go for coffee today. Like, I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
You don't know what conversation you're going to have with your buddy that might spark something. Right.
Yep.
And for me at this point, I'm like, maybe I have too many ideas. I'm sure I don't have time to get them all down on paper. Right. But
amen to that.
You just never know. Right.
He's always my idea guy. He's always saying something. So a couple times recently I've been like, stop talking to me until I'm done with this novella. Because I'm like, and we'll get to it in a minute, but it's funny that you mentioned it, because I'll talk about it here in a sec, but it is kind of funny that it ended up giving me this great idea for urban fantasy, and it's going to be in my current urban fantasy world. But it was just like a stupid thing that he said when we were hanging out. So I'm like, now I have to write that. So I definitely have too many ideas.
That's funny. Yeah, I got you. I hear you there. Before we start talking about our books, I wanted to know, how is you've interviewed, like you said, 3 seasons now. You've talked to a lot of authors. How has those conversations influenced your writing or publishing decisions?
Like just knowing the fact that I would say like patience is a big one, and like I'm purposely doing things this year just to get my name out there, because I've had so many people, which has been great, like don't get me wrong, I've had so many people be like, hey, I'm trying to buy your book, I'm trying to do this, and I'm like, I'm rapid releasing. I kept having to bump stuff back, but there's just been a bunch of authors I've had on the podcast. I'll interview someone like, hey, I really like that idea you had, and to know people whose books I adore and love and that have done well, that then want to read my stuff, keeps me motivated. Just based off of conversations and stuff we've had with them, and just those interactions. So for me, like this week's been rough, and it's just like trying to get this novella done so that way I could be done, and then give it to some alpha readers who I have lined up, and then fix it. But to really be like, hey, like I can do this, like people are interested, like knowing that people are already interested before they read, just based off of your idea, it allows me to finish. I guess it just already keeps me motivated. Even if I don't sell a bunch, whatever, I know somebody's going to be interested and at least want to buy it and read it, depending on what they think is different. But that to me just like keeps me going at this point in this stage with the editing process. So
yeah, very cool. Yeah, like what in talking with other authors on this platform has done for me, patience is a big one. Really, like, I mean, really suffer from wanting to get things out as soon as possible. Like, I'm done, okay, get it out and on to the next thing. And Zach's interview this year, ZSD and
Ooh.
Monty, he was talking about, he had quit his job to do this, or he wasn't working because he was doing this, and they were kind of down to the wire, but he was still holding back to make sure he had his marketing in place so that it would be successful when he launched it. Man, I hear that voice in my head now when I'm working on my current projects, like patience. Like, I'm like, you're right. Like, I think the downfall of my last couple of books was that I should have, but there wasn't enough time for me to market because a lot of things went wrong in leading up to it. It was down to the wire when I pushed Resurgence out the door, and I didn't give it the marketing push that it deserved. I will yet, like book 4 is coming out, but I need to give myself that lead up time, and I need to be willing to hold back in order for the greater success of the book. I saw it with Eclipse, so I know it works. Like Eclipse did quite well on release. And I think part of my thinking when I released Chimera and Resurgence was that the success of Eclipse would carry through, but it doesn't work like that. People have 100 books on their TBR pile. So if they don't have that visibility, and Zach realized this on his first book, like, it amazes me that these guys are coming out with their first books and realize this already. I really wish I realized this, when I put out my first book. But he spent that 8-9 months marketing, even though
he was all over the place.
And Adrian too. Adrian, figured this out.
Oh my God, his calendar is amazing. Like, I don't know if you've seen it.
Unreal.
Like,
that's
where I told my wife, I was like, I'm bumping back. I was like, because he said something to me privately, which I do want to share with people, because we were just talking, and I was like, I just don't think I'm ready. He goes, well, you have the ability to decide that, and I'm like, that's totally true, And I thought, he goes, well, why don't you just say, and him and like David from Fanfi Addict, before my blog post went up, he said the same thing. He goes, well, why don't you just say like late summer? He goes, you'll be done by late summer, right? I said, no matter what, I'll be done with all 3 by late summer. And he's like, well, just that advice alone, or just patience, and just setting those things up, I think. And because my wife was like, well, do you want to do then like August and then like September, October? I said, no, because you still need time in between. I said, people have to find you, read you, review you. So it's kind of nice. Even if you go August, she's like, you could then do 2 months in between or 3 months. And she goes, then you'll be into next year, which is fine. She's like, because then you'll have the next 2, the first book in that series out, because these are like prequels, but then she's like, you'll have your other thing out too. And she goes, isn't that the same thing you want to do? I'm like, that's true. So I just thankful that Adrian just said that to me. So I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And this, so with my, my upcoming books too, like, I'm running a Kickstarter. In my head, I was going to do it, March. It was going to be 2 books. It was going to be, and I'm like, well, why am I doing this? Like, I need to promote this Kickstarter so that it does what I want it to do. So I pushed it back. Like, I'm doing it. I still haven't set a firm date on it. I'm hoping for May. But it's going to be 1 book. It's going to be, but I have, the page is live. Not live. The page is up for, people can follow the campaign now, right? But I'm planning to launch it in May, but I don't have to. I'm going to launch it when I feel like it's ready to go. And then I'm going to have a multi-tiered kind of release for the book itself. So we'll talk a little bit more. I guess we'll talk about the book in our later questions. But it's that idea, like, I don't want to rush this. I want to make sure that this book is where I'm happy with it. I want to make sure that the build up to the release is happy with it, so that the Kickstarter does well, and then that the market release does well. And that's really how kind of those conversations with both Adrian and with Zach specifically really have influenced kind of how this year is going to look for me. Because at the beginning of the year, I'm like, I'm going to release these 2 cozy books. I'm going to release books 4 and 5 of Fractured Orbit, and I've got another book I'm working on. I'm like, breathe. I'm going to work on these books. Like, I hope to have all 4 of those books written by the end of the year still. I don't know if they're going to all be released. I'll for sure have 2 released this year, but what and when and how that looks is probably going to be a lot different than what I had imagined, January 1st.
No, totally.
Daniel, I want to talk about your books. We've been talking all around them. I have, you've had the privilege of interviewing me, but I haven't actually got to hear about you and your writing journey. We've talked a little privately about it, but
Yeah.
talk to me about you as a writer and how you got to this point in your author career.
Yeah, I always am like, oh, it was like 10 years ago, and I'm like, God, I'm old now. So when I was 14, I we went on vacation. I was huge into Star Wars, and then my old librarian, she actually used to work at my elementary school. Then she went to the public library, and for years she was giving me stuff. So it was super cool recently, where my mom was like, "Hey, Daniel's going to release these books. He just wants your information so he could send you one," because she gave me like the Seven Songs of Merlin. Like T.A. Bruno, that whole series. And that was some of the
Oh,
first
wow.
fantasy I ever read. And then when I was older, she's like, hey, I think I was like 14. I was like, oh, I'm going on vacation. I need a few books. And she's like, I really think you'd like these Forgotten Realms books. So I remember I took, it was like Shadowdale, I think, was like the first one, the Avatar trilogy. And I took it and I read it within like a day and a half or something like that. I just absolutely loved it. And that just changed my entire world. Because I had read just a little bit of fantasy. I read like Knight's Word, which is a great classic fantasy. I had read like The Hobbit, loved it previously. But yeah, like Redwall things. But like I was like really into it then, and I was like, I can do this. And then I found out like through a friend who was texting me, goes, oh yeah, these are great. And he said that like Wizards of the Coast, you could actually try to write for them and then see if you could get a Forgotten Realms book published. So I worked for like years, all the way into college, and then I was going to be an illustrator. And then I was in college, and I was like, oh, this isn't really for me. But I still was doing the writing aspect, and I took a bunch of fan fiction from Forgotten Realms and then turned it my own stuff. And then I let it sit for a while, and then once I got out of school, I started writing again. And then it just like turned into like my own fantasy world. And then once we went to like my buddy and I, once we moved like 9 years ago now to Phoenix, I was like, all right, I'm going to start to do this because now I have a full-time teaching job. And that's when I read Iron Druid Chronicles and got into urban fantasy. And I was like, oh, maybe I want to do a few things. And I still love sci-fi. So now it's like I have my own fantasy series that I have like several books. Like I just have to finish the next couple of years, like ready to go. And then I was doing the urban fantasy stuff, which I just really enjoyed. I feel like fantasy comes a lot easier to me in terms of writing it than urban fantasy. So we're working more on that stuff. I have like a mech warrior, like mech marine series, like trilogy I'm working on for like sci-fi too. I know a lot of people, they really just want to go one way. I'm trying to rapid release in one genre, which is going to be urban fantasy, and then I'll do fantasy, and then I'll do sci-fi. And I just kind of been all over the place. Like in terms of writing, I just tend to, and like I said earlier, it was hard for me to finish stuff. So that was like really like my main step was to finish something. So then I finished a fantasy book, and it just wasn't great. And I was like, this isn't going to work, because I was like, if I release this, like it's not going to do very well. I just knew that talking to different authors the last couple of years. And it's been the hardest thing is to be patient and just let the ideas flow. And eventually it's going to be like my thing. But it's the first, it's called The Thief's Ambition. It's a heist novel. Set in my own fantasy world in one city, and it's these two best friends just get into trouble, and like mayhem ensues and changes the world essentially and the continent they're on. But it's just not ready yet. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? And that's where I started doing novellas and short stories, and then all my short stories turned into novellas. And then this one, for some reason, with this character, I had this idea of a ex-recon Marine having a experience with the supernatural and completely changing his life. Because I'm like, how does a monster hunter become a monster hunter? Like we know that, the Winchester brothers and stuff. And I always loved like that show. I love Jim Butcher, Iron Druid Chronicles. So I was like, I want to do something like that. And that's where like Nathaniel was born. And I was like, well, I don't want to do book one because I wasn't sure what was going on with him. He like wasn't telling me everything. He was telling me some stuff, but I couldn't write a book one. So he kept telling about this story that happened to him. So I was like, all right, so I'm going to write this story. So that's my first novella. It's a prequel novella. There's one of three set several years before like his like main series starts. And he is in the Marines, and they go to find a friend's son that they thought got kidnapped or lost. They're not sure. And in one night, his entire world gets overturned by this supernatural experience and sets his life in a much different direction. And yeah, I'm working on book 2 as The Hunters. And then, I got novella 3 like kind of ready to go. So I know exactly what's going to happen, and it's going to be awesome. And I said before we got recording, it's urban fantasy. It's like you turn up the dial on all 3 and you slowly get like book 1 and like why he becomes a monster hunter. And then book 2 and 3 are like more the process. But I took a lot of different elements from people that I really enjoyed and tried to add something kind of unique into urban fantasy. And
yeah, okay.
that's pretty much what I've been working on and over the last like, year and a half, like really hard. So
yeah. And so the plan is to release all 3 at, rapid released.
Like at least 2 to 3 months. Yeah. So like definitely by August, I want to make sure that alpha and beta readers, because like I was saying before we got recording, I'll tell the audience, like, you're not going to get like full on Monster Hunter Nathaniel in the first novella. And it is all 3. It's like his journey. So the first one's really at the bottom. The second one really is that like, leading to the rise in action. And then that third one, like if you can get through one, and I'm trying to make that one just like a good story in general, just so people enjoy it and want to keep going. But yeah, he doesn't get his powers or anything till later. So it's really like that whole like beginning arc. And then I left a couple of years in between that so that if people like the novellas, I can do more. And, leading up to, like the actual first book in the series. So yeah, he's been really fun to write though.
Yeah, I bet. How many, so you have a few, it sounds like you have a few other series on the go. Yes. This series was just kind of the first one that kind of stuck enough that you're like, yeah, this is the series that I think is ready to be released.
Yeah, and like we talked a little bit earlier too, like, finances definitely had a huge part to play. So it's easier for me to get 3 novellas out. Corey Ratliff did my covers, like just amazing. I cannot wait till you guys see like all 3 like side by side. They're just amazing. And then I want to do a Kickstarter. I want to do an anthology where they're all together with like a different painted cover.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Like just different stuff. And I've been wanting to do that for a long time. And then kind of help me out, with like the next book and stuff. But yeah, the world has become so much bigger. I had other plans, but now, like these other characters want to be in the same universe. So, we're kind of going from there. So I have the 3 novellas for him, and then I'll have his book 1, early 2025. And then I have another book series trilogy, depending on how people like it, series called Ogres and Overlords. And it's where these ogres in ancient times, they're like the elite warriors of these overlords, these supreme sorceress beings from this other realm. And in ancient times, they come here to try and take over. But actually, Nathaniel, his monster hunting crew is that old. They're called the Night Stalkers. And they're like an ancient clan. So they're actually one of the groups that stop these ogres and overlords from taking over in ancient times. And they get left here, a small group of them, and they're like the elite warriors. So that's where all like your myths come from in my world of like the Fae and all these giants and things. And eventually they learn how to blend in with humans. They are able to like camouflage themselves and change their bodies kind of like chameleons. And they actually learn eventually to turn themselves into human. And actually Nathaniel's crew, the Night Stalkers, actually over time learns how to track them. So they have to either remain human, or if they switch based off of different situations, they can be tracked. And his crew can actually track them. And they have to like figure out then when the overlords come back, like they're kind of like, oh, we kind of like it here now. And they don't want to really do what they used to do. And there's a lot of psychological things that have happened to them to get them their servitude for the overlords. So I really explore a lot of that in there. And it'll be interesting because I'm definitely going to have that crew meet Nathaniel at some point. So whether or not they'll be friends or enemies, we don't really know right now, but it's just going to be really fun to write. I have a Valkyrie, and putting her in there too at some point with her series. So I have a couple other people. So it's going to be like an Avengers sort of thing in urban fantasy. So if you're into that kind of thing, then it'll be really cool. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And So I'm impressed that you have so many stories on the kind of on the go at the same time.
Yes,
How much of
yes.
them are like, how much of these do you have written out? Like,
Oh
is
geez.
it,
So for Nathaniel's world, I have so many ideas written down. So like for Ogres and Overlords, I'm at like 25K for book one right now. And I had the outline done. So that's going to be the one that I'm actually redoing first here this spring, just to get a break from like Nathaniel's world a little bit. And then I actually figured out his whole book one now. For his series, so those will be the two actually I'm going to be done with by the end of the summer, no matter what. And
okay.
then yeah, and then I'm actually going to see how that goes first with like the novellas and things in like the late summer, early fall. Because that'll kind of determine, like kind of what I want to do. If people are really interested, I might do, more for the urban fantasy for a little bit. If they're not, extremely doing well or something like that, then I might release one of my dark fantasies. I
Okay.
have like 3 or 4. Like I said, a lot of mine are around 35K, 45K. I have a couple 55K. I shoot for like around 70, 75. So yeah,
Right.
I have a bunch in there. So I have probably like 9 to 12 books that could be done within the next 2 years easy and then released. And that's pretty much like without the novellas. So people could expect at least 3 urban fantasies from me next year if they go well. And then dark fantasy or just like your clean adventure fantasy, kind of like Zia Monte does.
Right.
So I got a lot of those just prepped basically, and
That's
like ready to
awesome.
go. But yeah, he just would not
Yeah.
leave me alone, so I was having to figure out his novella story, and he wanted me to really listen to that before I could, really fix his actual story. So
Makes
yeah, it's
sense.
going to be really cool. But if you're into like, I have a lot of things that I think a lot of people like typical urban fantasy, you go in, you're like, oh, this is like, these are certain things that are going to happen. And I hit all the tropes and everything, but like, I just do things differently. And I pull the rug out from under you just to make it a really good story. And I have a lot of really great things planned. And at some point, it's going to be like urban fantasy meets Mission Impossible. And they're going to be like super high
Interesting.
stakes. And yeah, the world shifts a lot, like our real world. So yeah, if you like a
Right.
good story, I think people will be into it. So.
Yeah, cool. I love that you have already this universe kind of built out
Oh,
with
it's
these
gonna be
different
awesome.
stories happening within it. Yeah.
I have like
Yeah.
Aztec vampire hunting crew, and they're from like I saw a TikTok I loved, and I was like, oh, I have to add that now. So I have a this vampire huntress who comes from that clan and crew, in Central America. And I was
Hmm.
like, oh, this guy was like, well, what if vampires ruled the Aztec Empire? I'm like, why'd you do that to me? I'm like, now I have to put that in. So I've just gotten so many cool things from people where I'm like, oh, I just want to put this in. And then I started layering it together where that's where I was like, I'm just going to put it
Yeah.
all together. And it just ended up being so much more robust than I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I think people really like it. Like Nathaniel, so like werewolves, I just want to say for his first book, like werewolves, the legend actually come from people like him who have certain powers. Like they're not your typical werewolves, but that legend comes from them. They actually
Hmm.
morph with like these, like totem spirits. And his
Okay.
clan in particular, the Night Stalkers, does that with wolves, like a particular set of primordial like wolf spirits. So it makes
Hmm.
them kind of like the Witcher, like stronger, faster,
Yeah.
more durable, things like that. And then the monsters that they actually hunt, once they kill them, like slay them, wherever you want to say, they actually go into this like obsidian type of material from their other realm, and then that's what his crew uses and his clan uses for their weapons. It's the only thing that can kill what I call the others. So we have monsters that are
Okay.
from our realm, but all the other ones are from this other realm. And that's where, like a
Hmm.
vampire, you can't kill a vampire with traditional bullets. You have to have one of these blades or weapons from the material from their home planet. It's kind of like how Superman with kryptonite. I just reversed it.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Right.
anytime that he's going after these monsters, he slays them, and he actually is harvesting the same material that they need in order to actually, slay more of them and keep everybody safe. So that was
Hmm.
like a very interesting part of world building that I got to do. So if you're interested in things like
Yeah.
that, it'll be really fun. So
I love it. Yeah. It sounds great. um, Now, how are you keeping track of all this? Do you have a kind of a story Bible that you've got,
oh
or is it
yeah,
just all in
oh
your
yeah.
head? Yeah.
No, I write notes meticulously. I do
Cool.
like, so for Nathaniel, there's like, I just call it the Nathaniel Wither world building guide right now. So I just have everything on there, and then I actually then will pick and choose those notes that apply to each character or things that are going to overlap in stories. And then I make sure that I put them into each story. So thank goodness for Microsoft Word on my phone. Otherwise, because I just have ideas like crazy, and I'll be in between a meeting or something. I'm like, oh, this has to go down, or I'll watch something. Or somebody will say something, at school, even like a kid will be like, oh, this would be really cool. I'm like, that would be really cool. So I just write it down and, kind of come back to it later. So
that's a good way to do it. Yeah, I'm horrible at that. I always think I'm going to remember things later, and then I never do. So
that dad brain gets to me, man. So I have to make sure I get it down right away.
I don't have that excuse. I don't know what my excuse is, but
being an author, I think, is a total good excuse.
Yeah, right. We just have so many things on the go, right?
Oh my god, yeah.
So what's been kind of the most enjoyable part of creating the world for you then?
I would say Nathaniel, usually I don't write characters like myself. I like to write characters like other people. And I wanted just like your typical paladin. Once my son was born, I always thought like I'd be like a lawful good paladin. Then my son was born and I thought, oh my God, if anybody ever did anything to you, like I would be like Liam Neeson in Taken ×4. And it just like, it really like just like changed my thoughts. I was like, man, I wouldn't have any problem just doing something horrible to get you back, and I always thought he was like a jerk character. I don't know if that makes sense, and my friend was like, wait till you have a kid. And I'm like, you know what? He was totally right, and I just thought to myself, like, well, what if you have a guy that has a moral compass, but, like really would still do something to help people that others wouldn't do, and I kind of just thought back to people that I knew, and I'm like, man, like, like police officers that I've grown up with, some of my like family are, and military veterans and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of want to get in that psyche. And I thought, who would be a better monster hunter than Nathaniel, and somebody he literally tracks down monsters for a living, but they're men, and I just thought that'd be a cool transition. Yeah. So I just kind of started getting into wanting to, like, I would say, like, in terms of like mannerisms and stuff, like if you mess with a kid, Nathaniel will be all over you. And that's kind of like what happens in the first novella. And for me, like, that's a big thing. Cause like kids are my life. Like I've worked with kids more than half my life at this point. I've been working with kids for 22 years of my life. I'm 36. So I think actually 24 years, cause I started coaching and assisting and stuff early, in like middle school and high school. So like, I totally get it. And, some people, they're like, oh, like, like, I don't know. They're just like, oh, this is my thing. And like helping kids is my thing. So I just, thought it'd be really cool to put that into Nathaniel, but then with his skill set and his background, kind of go from there and just kind of see what happens. And he has just developed into such an interesting character, and he loves his friends, his unit and everything. And just to see how he handles different situations has just been super interesting. So I don't know. It's just been really fun.
Yeah. Really cool. Yeah. Have you had any challenging parts in creating?
Oh my God. Yeah. He was like, I'm not telling you about this until I tell you about this story. And it's like, was really linear. And I always think back to Robert E. Howard with Conan, and his best friend was like, yeah, I watched him write one day, and it's almost like Conan was talking to him. And he used that as a reference of why the stories were kind of scattered. And Robert Howard said that a few times. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, Nathaniel, I thought that makes sense with a recon Marine, a detail-oriented person. He's a sergeant, so it's like he wants things A to B. So I was like, well, that would make sense to me, because I'm just trying to write this other story. But I'm like, he's like, no, you have to know this story to understand this story and where I'm at now. And psychologically, I think that makes a lot of sense. So for me, I was just like, all right, just get out of his way, let him tell me the story. And he's been telling me the story. So I got the first 3 prequel novellas, and at first I was like, oh, I'm gonna put it into one book and stuff. And he was like, no, this is how these stories are. So it's just been interesting. So yeah.
Because that was going to be my next question. What made you decide to put them out as novellas?
Yeah, it just like just didn't feel right. I put the second one, started putting the second one in together, and then it just didn't feel like it was a chapter break. It was like this story is done, and once I got into, like, I literally just have conversations with him sometimes. I'll start to just write and flow, and he'll just be talking to me, and he's like, "No, you don't understand. Like, I thought I was going to be a recon Marine my whole life, and this part of my life ended, and I thought, God, that makes so much sense as a theme, And then the second book is like, he's like, dude, I'm like effed up. Like, I mean, it ends like, holy crap. And, and like, not that it's not like I don't know, there's like things that happen that are happy, but it's not a happy ending. And it keeps going. And he's like, really has to find himself again. And that's like novella too, is him finding himself. So he eventually finds himself with the hunters, with some people from the Night Stalkers, and then they won't take him and stuff happens. And then the third one, I don't want to give away, but like, cause like the first and second one are very different, but the second and third one are pretty similar, I would say. Cause it's that rising action and everything. And and he was just talking to me, and I was like, okay, I guess you're right. Like, this is 3 novellas, and, from a marketing aspect, I'm like, okay, I could get, try and sell the first one, then give it away. Heck, I eventually, for a newsletter, I could give away the first 3 or do whatever. And cost wise and time wise, it made more sense. And then if I spread them out, I could easily get, his first novel finished now that I know a lot of these things. Because I really wanted the world building done for the magic system, the history and stuff. And I was trying to come up with it over here. It just wasn't working. So I went with them from the beginning of the story. And I thought, well, why can't readers do the same thing if they want to? True. People will kind of get a choice at that point once book 1 actually comes out, if you want to go with the prequel novellas or you want to go from there. So it was interesting.
That's really cool. And like you said, you've laid a foundation now for book 1, and The Witcher kind of did something similar, right? Like you have the first novel is really a set of short stories, right? And then kind of the story takes off after that. That's really cool.
No, totally. It just seemed to fit. I don't know. I talked to a couple authors, like, just get out of his way and let him tell you the story. So once I did that, it was definitely a lot easier. So
it's crazy. It is crazy how that happens. I've definitely been there, and all of a sudden you're telling a story you never thought you were telling. So
he's definitely gone that route. So I'm like, are you sure you would say this? He's like, no, I'm going to say it this way. I'm like, okay. And he's a recon Marine, and I have some black belts, but I'm going to get out of his way. So
awesome. I look forward to reading it.
And sorry, I lost track of where we were. So I definitely wanted to know about like you're just like with the cozy fantasy. Like, as soon as I heard you were doing that, I was like, that just sounds awesome. And I think that's all you said to me. And I was like, all right, cool. And then once I was like, saw the TikTok, where you had like the cover and stuff, and had like the blurb or description, I just thought that was really cool. So I was just curious as to what made you switch to cozy fantasy and like where this story came from. It just sounds awesome.
It's so funny. And I guess there's a how far back do you want to go with it? Because I don't talk about my books on my own show, so this will be for both of our audiences. But so this is the cover I think you're talking about, and I'm
it was cool.
Frame out of shot here, so I don't know what you can see. So this is actually a placeholder cover, to be honest. This isn't going to be the final cover. This is I've got Mibble Art working on the final cover. This actually is one I just did up at Midjourney myself. I don't want to release that. So the Bartender Between Worlds. So I switched to cozy fantasy. It's interesting. I finished Eclipse. I wrote Chimera. I was kind of writing Chimera and Resurgence at the same time last year, and I just kind of had this idea in the back of my head, like you were saying, you have those ideas that won't let you go. And I actually came up with the idea for the next book in this series. They're standalone books, but The Greatest Pub in the Multiverse. We talked about that a little bit earlier. I just had this idea about a interdimensional pub where. And I know it's not a brand new idea. I've learned later it's not a brand new idea. Other people have done this to varying degrees. But I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if there's this multi-dimensional pub where people are bringing ingredients from different worlds and making kind of their own brew in this interdimensional pub, right? And so I'm like, okay, file that away and kind of let that story build in the back of my mind as I was writing Chimera and Resurgence. During So when I got to Chimera and Resurgence, I wrote at the same time, like I mentioned to you, but they were kind of going through different stages of edits.
Mm.
So while I submitted Chimera for edits, I was kind of working on Resurgence, but I also and when I submitted Resurgence and that sort of thing, I had a bit of extra time that I didn't want. I was tired of editing. I just wanted to do a little bit of writing, and I thought, okay, well, I can start book 4, which I kind of had because book 3 kind of led into book 4 for Fractured Orbit. But my brain was like, no, you need to like do something a little bit different on the side. So I started writing Greatest Pub. It initially was going to be like a Guardians of the Galaxy action adventure story. And as I was writing, it just was like fighting me the whole way. Like, no, this guy needs to set up this pub. It needs to be really this. What started to come out was really this Legends and Lattes type story of this guy opening this pub. He inherits this pub, realizes that there's an interdimensional gateway kind of located in the pub, and he never wanted to inherit this bar. So I started down this road and I'm like, no, this story is really a cozy fantasy, and I fought it for a little while because it's not the genre I typically gravitate towards. I'm in my head this was going to be like I said, Guardians of the Galaxy interdimensional story, right? And I kind of got about halfway through it, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm writing this cozy fantasy, but my readers are sci-fi. They're expecting dystopian sci-fi from me. I should probably have a reader magnet for this story. So I'm like, okay, well, I have this side character that I brought into the story. I'll just do her backstory, and that'll be my reader magnet novella. Yeah. I'm like, I'll just write a quick 20,000 word novella, no problem. So
welcome to the indie life.
Yeah, right. So that's where Bartender Between Worlds came in. I started to write down that. Cozy fantasy, though, is really a genre where it's focused on characters and relationships. So I brought in a couple new characters into the Bartender Between Worlds. So I guess we'll back up a little bit and talk about the Bartender Between Worlds, because this is going to end up being my next release. It's what I'm running the Kickstarter on. So the story is about a witch hunter who she was brought up from a young age. She was an orphan, recruited took in by the kingdom to become this witch hunter. Brought up from a young age she's one of the best trained witch hunters in the country. So they fight monsters, they hunt witches, they bring them in. The story kind of starts off. She discovers that she has a magical ability, and which is outlawed in the kingdom.
Oops.
So, whoops, yeah. So she, but this magical ability can only affect drinks. She discovers this when she served a bad pint of ale, and she's like, no, I think I can make this better. And she does, and she realizes that she's got magic, but it can only influence alcoholic drinks. So
you got a whole audience that's like jealous right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So she kind of freaks out, takes off. She's like, I need to get out of here because if they figure out what I am, I'm in trouble. Yeah. So she takes off to kind of the most remote village in the kingdom that she knows of. And she's like, okay, well, she's like, I'll hide out here. I'm going to become a bartender because I can use what I have, and I'll just live a simple life. She never really enjoyed witch hunting anyway. It's just what she was born into. While she's in this village, she meets a couple of characters. One's kind of eccentric scientist, he calls himself. She thinks he's a sorcerer, and another's a fairy. So through meeting these, this is the first time I've told this story out loud. So, yeah. So through this encounter, she finds out that this professor is actually from another world. He got stuck in her realm, kind of by accident, and this fairy's been trying to help him out. This fairy kind of has also been, her name is Vespa. Vespa's been ostracized from her fairy community for wanting to help humans. So all three of these people are really out of what's the word? They're really ostracized from their communities. Yeah. We have a witch hunter who has magic. We have a professor who kind of got stuck in a world with magic and no of scientific discoveries, and we have a fairy who wants to help humans and kind of got ostracized from her community because of that. From there, they kind of go through this journey of discovering who they are and who they were meant to be, and that's really kind of the setup for the story. It is a fun story. It's really low stakes. That's why I still continue to call it a cozy. It's not the traditional cozy like Legends of Lattes, like The Greatest Pub will be. This is kind of, it's more of a journey. But they go on an adventure, and I'd say if people have read A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Magic by T. Kingfisher, the magic system in that book definitely was an influence in this one, and her being able to influence drinks and that sort of thing. As well, there's definitely a Legends of Lattes vibe of taverns, cozy taverns and that sort of thing, and making drinks. And then throw in a dash of, you remember like the 90s show Sliders? Throw in a dash of that, and you've got this book, right? So it's it's an interesting mix. It's kind of, they go on kind of a wild ride, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm in, the final stages of edits as we're recording this. That's awesome. By the time this episode is out, I'll have the new cover for it. I'll have the Kickstarter is coming. The Kickstarter is already up, so if people haven't already, they can go and follow that. It'll be running, I'm hoping, in May. And and then the actual release will be probably sometime late summer is the goal.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then the next book, which The Greatest Pub in the Multiverse, like I said, they're standalone stories. That one is more it'll be more of what people think of when they think of a Legends and Lattes type story, where this guy inherits a magic pub, and similar themes. He's got to try to figure out where he wants to be with his life. But yeah, that's cool. That is it's a total break from my other books. My other books have all been just dystopian, really. But it was nice to take a break from that. I still have plans, like after The Greatest Pub in the Multiverse comes out, which will be late this year, is the plan. I'll be back to Fractured Orbit, and I'll get book 4 and 5 put out with that, and we'll kind of see where interest lies after that. I have this series is called The Greatest in the Multiverse now. It's going to be kind of my Cosmere, if you will. Like, I plan to of the next phase of my writing is going to be all within this multiverse to some degree. That's cool. I think when we last talked, I mentioned that I was working on an epic fantasy. That's a separate story that I still have that story kind of on the back burner. I've written a good 40,000 words of that, but it'll be in this multiverse now. But that'll be an epic fantasy story, but it's going to be, there'll be some Easter eggs and that sort of thing, kind of like the Cosmere, right? So it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of, I'm going to lean a little bit more into fantasy after Fractured Orbit a bit, and we'll kind of see where things go from there.
Well, that's super cool. I don't totally get you, because like I had like this random idea that somebody had given me. I was like reading something. I was reading Pierce Brown, and I really liked Roke, the character from Red Rising, and I was like, I just want like a rogue, like Rorschach from Watchmen, and I'm gonna just call him Rogue. And then I was like, I just want to do like a D&D thing. So I think like in between writing, I'm just gonna like kind of do something like that, because I feel like you just need to do something opposite of whatever it is you're doing after a while. That's why I posted. I was like, does anybody else like hate their book after a certain point? Because I was like, I just can't edit anymore for a while. You're staring at it. So
you're just staring at it for so long, right? You know what? I started writing Eclipse in, I think it was September of 2022. And before that, I had written an Infinity, which is the prequel short story for it. And that was in like June, I think I had started that one. So I'd been in Fractured Orbit for two years, because I finished just over a year. I finished Resurgence in November, so I'd been well over a year. I'd been in this universe, and while I started The Greatest Pub, my brain was just like, just take a little break. It's turned into a little bit longer of a break than I think what I had initially intended, but that's fine. I'm still really excited about my Fractured Orbit series. I'm really excited to get out of the way. So it's just I put 3 books out in that series in 1 year, so I figured, well, I can take a little bit of a breather now before the next 2 come out, and I'll give that series a breath of fresh air once these other 2 are out.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned like reader magnets, so I know we talked about that privately before, and that's where I was thinking too. I was like, oh, I was like, if nobody buys, the 100, I was like, I'll just give it away to people, and then that's the nice thing about, I think, indie though, right? It's just because at first I was like, oh, I'm gonna do some short stories, and I don't know, I feel like I'm not good at short stories. They always turn into novellas or novels or something like
that. so that's what this too. Like, it was supposed to be a novella. Like I said, I meant it to be 20,000 words. It's at 40. It'll be 50,000 words by the time I'm done with it here. It took on its own story, and I'm really happy with it. And so I kind of shifted. It's not going to be a reader magnet. It's going to be its own project. Like, I was going to launch it with The Greatest Pub as a combined Kickstarter for the 2 books, but they're each getting their own now. I just think it's a full enough story that I wanted to give it the marketing and the attention that it really deserved. And really, like, the response on TikTok since I've started posting about it has been phenomenal. So I kind of realized, like, there's something here. So I'm gonna give it its own push. And I don't know what I'll do for a reader magnet for it now, because I don't really want to get sidetracked on another short story that turns into its own. But so it might not have a reader magnet. It might just be what it is, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it's fun, because like I know somebody that did their first book like that, for just their readers, but they never gave away their first book to anybody once they got to like book 6 or something. It was 2 different trilogies. But I was like, oh, why is it? They're like, well, I don't have a reader magnet. I've been trying. They're like, every time it just turns into its own thing, It's too big. They're like, so I just do it for book 1, but that's the only time I give away book 1. They're like, any other time, it's still this price and stuff. But that is the nice thing I think about indie, right? You can just kind of decide
you can make those decisions as you go.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, that's super cool. I think there's like a lot of people that, want cozy fantasy, and even like Cursed Cocktails, right? And then totally blanking on his second one. But yeah, like that one looks really cool. Thistle and
I forget the name now too.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just grabbed a copy of it too.
I was gonna say I did too.
Yeah.
It's because I was like, oh, I'm gonna resentence to Troll first still, but yeah, I don't know. I think that there's just a huge market, and I think cozy fantasy is still such a new thing, kind of like romantasy, right? Like, there's things that could be in it, but in terms of what people want, I think there's a huge market for it. So, and I think that's going to be another one that develops over time too. Where, like you were saying, well, this is cozy, but it's a little bit more adventurous. But I think that once those kind of things get set, the flavors then start to kind of get made in there, and then you never know what's going to pop out of there either. So
exactly, yeah. And cool. I think I've definitely seen there's been a lot of dark fantasy, a lot of focus on grimdark and that sort of thing, and I feel like there's a lot of appetite for something that's not so high stakes and dark and grim, right? So yeah, even though, like I said, there's a little bit more adventure in it, I try to keep it fairly light, and I try to throw they make a drink every now and then to lighten the mood and that sort of thing. But
that's awesome. That's cool. Do I get to ask you your last question?
You can ask me any question you want.
Oh man. All right. I've been wanting to ask this question since, because I heard somebody else in the first like 5 episodes you had asked.
I've had a couple of the initial ones, yeah.
But I'm like, I've been waiting for my chance. So your podcast is the greatest podcast in the multiverse, but can you tell me how in a parallel universe, a different choice you might have shaped another version of your life?
Yeah. So I'll keep this topical, and it's funny. I've kind of said it. Anytime I'm asked this question, I'm going to give a different answer, because I just feel there's so many different ways my life could have.
That's fair. Yeah.
And I'll keep this topical for you. There's another universe out there where I'm a teacher.
Oh, okay.
I went my dad was a teacher. I mentioned that off camera. My first year of university, my first year of college, I went for a Bachelor of Education.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I got to the end of high school and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
And so 20 odd years later, I still don't know. No, now I don't know. So I went I did my first 2 years of Bachelor of Education with an English major. And I, at the end of 2 years, decided I just wasn't interested in it. and I didn't know what else to do, so I just got a Bachelor of Arts with an English major. But there's I definitely, at that end of that 2 years, I could have just stuck with it. I have two of my best friends are teachers that were in school with me. I could have carried on with them, and a number of things happened around that time where I decided, no, I'm not going to do. This isn't going to be the career path for me.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a version of me that decided, no, I'm just going to finish and do this for a living. But yeah, like at that time I decided, I took the next 2 years, finished my degree, and then I went to banking, not right after, but somewhat after that with my English degree. So and then I did that for 10 years, and now I'm doing web design. So there's definitely a version out there somewhere that would have stuck with the teaching degree, went and taught English. I'd be teaching English just like you.
Oh, that's cool.
That was it's one of those things I realized, I know you said that, your focus is helping kids, and I realized at that stage that, kids and I never got along even as kids. I was always, the kid that went and listened to the adults talk. That was just who I was. I found it more interesting. And so I realized, why am I choosing a career that, not that I didn't see the value in it, obviously, because like I said, my dad was a teacher. He was a science teacher, but I didn't feel it was the right fit for me.
Yeah. And kids always sense that.
Exactly. Yeah. They do. So and so I do want to hear your answer though. In a parallel universe, what are you doing?
The first time you asked this, I was like, it came to me instantly. So I was originally I wanted to do illustrating. I love art. I still do, and I always have. I always was drawing comics. Comics was going to be my main thing, and I really think in a parallel universe, like there was like two choices, very kind of like the coffee shop we were talking earlier, right? Like that could have very easily, I could have been in comics this entire time. So definitely somewhere I have done my own graphic novel, and whether or not I was successful at it, I don't know, but I was definitely, maybe I'd be in a little studio apartment, in LA or New York or wherever at this point. But yeah, I definitely think that there's a me out there in another universe that is does comics and is an illustrator.
That's
so
really
maybe
cool.
writes too.
Yeah. That's awesome. Now, have you considered like doing illustrations for your books?
Oh yeah, I'm like so out of practice. I'm really hoping that I can get back into it. I used to do some like interesting things. So eventually what I'd like to do is start practicing. I'm actually like this summer basically being like, okay, 5 years from now, trying to do my own covers. So cool. I was drawing a little bit during the pandemic and stuff again. It's like anything, if you don't use it, you lose it. So, and I'm not horrible still, but not where I was, definitely not in college.
Right.
So yeah, but I would like to definitely do that again in the future. I'm taking some classes the next couple of years, just like, Udemy, stuff like that. And trying to get back into it, because one of these days I'd love to put what's here, and actually put it on the covers. So yeah, I would love to get back to one of these days. But for right now, I'll leave it to the professionals, so like Felix.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Sean stuff. So.
Yeah, I hear you there with it. The covers as well. I have my wife doing. My wife's an artist, right? She
you said that,
and paints and that. Yeah, so she's doing some illustrations for my Kickstarter editions.
Cool.
They're turning out so good. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'll probably have shared them at this point on my social media by the time this goes out. But they're really well done. I'm looking forward to seeing the final products here.
Yeah, I can't wait to see them. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. This has been great. I'm glad that we decided to do the joint interview here, and I hope we get to do it again.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I'm doing seminars, so I'd love to have you and Adrian, and then we talked about like having Tom or somebody else on. So I think it'd be cool, just the four of us or whoever whoever wants to show up.
I would love that.
Yeah, come and talk about just podcasting and writing in general. So yeah, it'd be really fun. Look forward to it. So I will put the link to your podcast in the show notes. If the links are up to your books by the time this goes out, I will include those as well. Okay.
But also, I'll definitely include the links to your Facebook group and all the social media and that sort of thing where people can get a hold of you. Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds good, my friend. I look forward to it.
Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed the show, like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Greatest Podcast in the Multiverse. As well, You can help support the show by supporting me on Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can get early access to the show, as well as submit your questions for my upcoming guests. I hope to see you next time. Bye now.